Welcome to the Butterfly Mindset Podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Butterfly Mindset Podcast. Today I have Jaden George. We are in Nashville. What's up, bro?
What's going on, man? I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, appreciate you being here, dude. I'm stoked because when I came across your bio, it was like, I think it said you were 19 years old when you bought your first multifamily property.
Yep.
Talk to me about how that actually happened.
Yeah, man. So I think it goes back to, let's see, I can remember like a distinct point. It was right when COVID originally happened. So it was 2020. I was 17 at the time. And I had picked up a Brandon Turner book. So he was an author. He was with Bigger Pockets.
Yeah.
He wrote, the book was the book on rental property investing. And it was basically like a step-by-step guide on, how to buy real estate, how to buy rental properties, anything from single family to small multi, and different strategies, stuff like that. So I read that, and that kind of like sparked the interest. And after that, it was Rich Dad Poor Dad. That did it even more. There was no looking back. Kind of changed my whole mindset and kind of shifted my whole kind of perspective. And so I knew that after that, real estate was something I wanted to get into. Still at the time, it wasn't like something I was going to do full time, but it was something that I was definitely interested in, and it was going to be part of, at least my life. Like I figured it would be on the side though, right? Accumulate a few rentals and just build up passive income, and eventually be able to retire early. That whole movement was kind of what drew me in. After that, during COVID, just reading more books, listening to a ton of podcasts, and I had set up. Like I basically written down the goal of buying a 2 to 4 unit property before the age of 21. Like that was the big thing. Like that was I think I heard it on a podcast. Like that's where it came from. And I was like, okay, well, if somebody out there can do it, I'm gonna do it.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was a written down goal of mine. And basically, I'm a huge believer in the law of attraction.
Yeah.
Right? Like what you focus on and what you consume is what you get, is what presents itself in the world. Opportunities start to present themselves, and you start to notice them.
Yeah.
And so at 18, I ended up getting that property under contract, and that was freshman year of college. So that was 2.5 years ago at this point, and 19 closed on it, and yeah. So that's the story there.
So you're 17 years old. Like what made you pick up that book by Brandon Turner? Like why that book compared to something else?
No, yeah, great question. So I guess the real estate thing does go a little bit further back, and that would be my dad. Okay. So my dad, growing up, he had a few rentals, right? He was the old school landlord. He had a 3-unit property, was his first property, and I remember he bought that and always self-managed it, never handed it over, even after we moved states. And so I remember growing up, I was probably 11 at the time. And I remember being in there, helping him paint the kitchen and helping him, fix stuff. Yeah. Didn't really know why he had it. Honestly, didn't really care. And I just, I didn't think anything of it. And then I remember it was probably early high school years. I decided, I kind of like dug in and kind of asked him like, hey Dad, like what's going on here? Like why do you own this property? And like, what's going on? And so I kind of learned. It was like, okay, so, the tenants pay you this much in rent, but your mortgage is only this much, right? So there's some cash flow there, and you're not even in the same state. It's pretty hands off. And then look how much it's gone up in value over the last few years, right? So it basically gives him a lot of leeway to go and refinance or to sell it.
And what state was that in?
So that was in North Carolina. That's where I'm originally from, Charlotte.
You're originally from Charlotte, and then what brought you guys over here?
Well,
did
my
your
dad's
whole family
job.
move here?
Yeah,
okay.
The whole family moved to Nashville.
Okay.
Yeah, my dad got a new job. So that was when I was like 11. So 10 years ago at this point. So but that was really where I was like, that was where it sparked the real estate thing, was those early high school years where I started asking him about it, and then it turned into I just kind of took it and ran.
Yeah.
It wasn't long before I was teaching him stuff about real estate. I was like, hey, do you know you could do this and check this out, and different strategies and stuff. So it was kind of.
So then like you start reading this book. So you sparked your interest from early on from your dad, seeing your dad do it.
Right.
And then you read this book, and then it's like what it sounded like is you had a moment when you were listening to a podcast that someone said, was it someone said they bought a property?
Yeah, it was somebody's story where I think they were 21 when they bought their, I think it was a 3-unit or a 4-unit, and I was like, boom, that's all I think that's all I needed was somebody had done it before. It's possible, so I can do it.
And it's like it's funny because like there's so many times that we see stuff like that it's like, oh my gosh, wait, if they can do it, I can do it, right? Like, and it's this thought process. Then it's like, how do you figure out how to get there, right? So now, like, and that's what I was really excited about for this interview is like, I interview all kinds of different people, professional athletes, people that own huge companies. I had the king of Nashville himself, Gary Ashton, on the podcast, right? Like, number one real estate team here, number one real estate team in the world for RE/MAX, right? And I think I was really excited about this interview because being able to accomplish that at 19 years old, buying your first property, and then to move forward to be able to do what you're doing now is very impressive at your age, especially being in college still, finishing college, but also like the fact that you're able to do that. And the reason that that's very impressive and why I wanted to highlight that is because like hopefully that inspires somebody else and tells them they can do it. So talk to me about what that process was like 19 years old, like did you have a job? Did you have income? How did you get that property?
So there's kind of two sides there. There's the income and the savings and the down payment, and then there's the actual education, right? So I guess I'll tackle the education was just podcast, man. So like 2020 hit, and first thing I did was, look, I'm gonna make as much money as I can this summer. The only thing I knew how to do was go get the highest paying job, which was it was a Gap distribution center, and it was paying $13.50 an hour. And I got the full-time shift as soon as school ended. So I was waking up at 5 a.m., going in at 6, getting out at 2. And then I remember even after that, I would fold up my push mower into the back of my Ford Fiesta, go out and mow lawns in the neighborhood. That's a fun memory.
So tell me this. So rewind. So like why do all of this? Like why go and put in all this work on Gap? Why put in all the work with freaking mowing the lawns? Like what was like where did you learn that from?
Yeah, look, that's something that I honestly I have to sit down and think about it. I do know that from an early age I've kind of always had this almost aversion to mediocre, like to normalcy, to the word average. Like I've always kind of cringed at that, and so I maybe it's me running away from that, like doing what I can to not be that. And so I don't know. I mean, maybe there's more there. I'm not.
Did you play sports or did you?
No, actually, I didn't play any sports in high school. My high school years looked like focusing on school, making sure I got A's there, and then just work. I worked from 15. As soon as I could get a job, I did, and I was always the one picking up shifts and working 30 hours a week on top of school and saved every dime. I mean, even to this day, I track all my expenses, and I can tell you down to the second decimal point of the percentage of like money that I saved of my income. And during high school, I'm living at home. I'm saving 90%. So I'm working, and so from 15 to when I go off to college, I saved all that much. I think, and then after that, it was so I had savings from high school, and then whenever COVID hit, I had done some super lucky, like can't take any credit for it, but stock plays with Delta Airlines, taking advantage of the COVID, right? Of that COVID dip in the stocks. So Delta Airlines and Hertz Rentals, and so I think I maybe like 80% returns there. And so that was what I was able to use to leverage into the 4-unit property later on. But all that to say, the reason I started with the Gap warehouse was because I was working 40 hours a week, but I was listening to podcasts on 2x speed, right? So I was basically just downloading 80 hours worth of content. And those podcasts were just like this. I mean, sitting down with, hour-long conversations with some of the biggest real estate investors in the country, some of the entrepreneurs, business owners, and just super, super successful people. And so being able to just drink from a fire hose, their mindset, just ways to think about business, real estate, and everything like that was huge, and really what catapulted me to be able to even think that something like that was even possible, which is a big part of the equation, right?
100%. And it's like, I always talk about this because my background, a little bit about my background. And then when I got into real estate, I had no knowledge of real estate whatsoever, right? But what I do know is that if I'm going to put my mind to something, I'm going to go all in.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're very much that way.
Yeah.
And I always like to get down to like what makes people, like successful people, tick, and what makes them think the way they think and how they think. And I truly believe we are our mindset and our thought process is the sum of our past experiences, right? So like there's somewhere, right? Like whether it's like, I don't know, if your dad is like an extremely hard worker, if somebody told, but there's somewhere in there that like, for some reason you have this thought process where like, you do not want to be mediocre, right? You want to push yourself through and then a lot of people have that feeling, but then a lot of people, I think they, sometimes people avoid that feeling.
Sure.
Right? Because it's like, it's easy to sit there and be like, you know what? No, it's okay to take the day off. Yeah. Like, I know you don't want to right now. You're going to be great, but let me take the day off today because I need a break.
Yeah.
Right? Where like the people that excel at such high levels where you've done, right, is you said, instead of saying, I'll do it later, you said, I'll do it now. Yeah. Right? And so from 15 years old, you take your job, you get your job, you go from there, and then, yes, you make some plays in stock, which were, whether they're lucky or not, like, they're also educated plays, right? Like,
well, and the way that I look at luck is, I was putting myself in positions to get lucky. Yeah. Right? Like, and that's what people do. It's like, sure, like 90% of the equation could be luck, but also you have to be ready for it when that opportunity comes up.
100%, 100%, and then be able to capitalize on those moves. So then you were able to have your down payment, but how did you know how to get the financing? Sure. How did you know that whole process?
Yeah, look, I mean, honestly, a lot of it was the books and the real estate kind of gave me a fundamental, it gave me the knowledge. Like, the knowledge was there. I knew how to do it, but I think that a bigger part of the equation was the mindset, like thinking that even with having the understanding that it is possible to do it was what drove me to figure it out, right? Because you can read all the books you want, but when, my lender tells me that I actually can't do an FHA loan 20 days into what was supposed to be a 30-day close, it's like that. There's no book on that. Like, you have to you just got to figure it out. Like, but knowing that it's possible to get it done because somebody out there's done it before, you figure it out. So
So then after that, then now you're working on huge multifamily deals. Yeah. How do you start getting involved from just doing a four unit at 19 to doing, a 48 unit deal? Like, how does that work?
So the transition there was, I closed on the 4 unit. I spent that summer sleeping on an air mattress in one of the units, renovating 2 of them at the same time, waiting for them to turn.
You were renovating them.
Oh yeah,
yourself.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it wasn't like crazy. It wasn't crazy renovations, but it was paint and flooring. I contracted out, stuff like that. Stuff I didn't know how to do, but stuff that I knew how to do, I did. I needed to save money and to do that. So crazy summer of basically doing all 4 of the units, turning it entirely, and after that, in like when you're in the thick of it, that's all you can see. But as soon as I got on the other end of that, I was. Like, you get the real estate bug. Yeah. Man, I don't know if everyone does, but I did. Like, I was ready for the next one.
Oh, you get the itch.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Like, I'm ready to do the next deal. So, I'm telling my realtor, I was like, hey, you send me deals. Knowing damn well I've got no money. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've got no way but I'll figure it out. Like, send me good deals. And if they're good, money will come. But what ended up happening, actually, how I transitioned into commercial, it was, so what happened is I remember going on Crexy, which is basically like Zillow, but for commercial real estate. And I remember seeing a 22-unit building for sale. And it was one that I pass every day to go to class. And I remember downloading the OM from basically like the broker presentation and just being in awe, man. It was like, those things are like so beautiful to look at, like they're supposed to be. They're trying to sell the property, but I was just like, man, like what would it take for me to buy something like this? And again, I had heard it on the podcast. I knew that it was possible. Like I knew that, okay, like I might need $600,000-$700,000 to buy something like that, but it doesn't have to be my own money, right?
Yeah.
So now this is when I start thinking of, okay, who do I know that has that kind of money that they can invest? And I didn't have anyone I didn't know anyone in my, I didn't know anyone in my first degree, but I knew that, man, like I am just one phone call away of being able to buy something like this. Now, at the time, I didn't know if it was a good deal or not. I figured it was because I was looking at the great numbers that the brokers had put in, right? But knowing what I know now, it probably wasn't. But it was enough to spark the, man, like this is exciting. Like, and I think it's within reach. It was just outside my comfort zone, but I knew that it was possible. So after that, same thing, right? Ordered 2 or 3 books that day, got them shipped 2 or 3 days later. 2 or 3 months later, I read them. I started going to conferences. I started listening to different podcasts that focus more on this stuff, taught myself, how to underwrite. I'm very analytical. I love Excel. So that was my into the commercial real estate space was underwriting, right? Which is basically analyzing the properties and figuring out, what it makes sense to pay for a property and what the returns look like for investors. So that was my man. Like I just learned everything about it. And so that was the value that I was able to offer to people that were above me, right? Yeah. People that had the ability to raise a couple million with a few phone calls. Maybe they needed somebody to underwrite, and I was going to be that guy. So then it was just a matter of putting myself in the right rooms and just providing value and doing it for free, man. I went from the whole year of 2023, I probably underwrote close to $1 billion worth of real estate and made $0. I was still serving. I was serving at a restaurant.
Hell yeah.
So it's like you have to do but I was putting myself in positions where if one of those deals were to close, I would have been on it.
So now tell me this, what kept you doing it when nothing was closing?
Oh man, honestly, I feel very fortunate because I found like what I love. And I love real estate. And like I said, I love the numbers kind of behind it, and so this is like the intersection really of it, and I think there's another thing there that intersects as well, which is the ability to kind of bring people with me. Like this commercial real estate stuff is a team sport, right? There's investors that have to come on board. There's people that actually raise the capital from them. There's people that find the property. There's people that manage it after we buy it, and so I kind of gravitated towards the idea of, okay, I can help. Like there's people out there that have money that want to invest in real estate that maybe don't know how, and I can offer them the opportunity to get in on some of these deals and bring them along with me, and I can play a part I can be a part of their journey towards financial independence, right?
Yeah.
And so that was also driving it too, and so it was kind of an intersection of those 3 things. I just loved it, man. Like I could do it. I just love the art of the deal almost. Like it's just making all the pieces come together to close a deal.
Because it's always so interesting, right? Like because there's a lot of people that like they'll do it, and if the results don't come, and candidly, this is nothing, against your age and your age group, but like candidly, a lot of the younger people now.
100%.
They have short attention spans, and if they don't get instant results, they're out.
Yeah.
And underwriting that many deals, going through that much process, and with no money, with no income, like it's hard to stay motivated.
100%.
One, you love it,
Sure. Yeah.
right. But like it's like I always say, like you can love a girl that's amazing and she's great, but if she doesn't love you back, how long are you gonna stay trying to get her? Right. You know what I mean? So that's the question, right? Is like you love this sport, you love this game of real estate.
Yeah.
But what made you stay in love with it even going through those, even without the instant results? Because again, again, I see it all the time. I work with so many young men and young women that like I see them come in and I see them leave.
Yeah.
Because they don't get those results in 6 months.
Right.
Right?
No, I think I realized, and I was, probably, this didn't come from myself. I was fortunate enough to either read this or hear it from somebody much wiser than me, but the idea of lead versus lag measures, which is instead of tracking how many deals am I closing, if I would have tracked my success on how many deals am I closing, dude, I failed. I mean, I failed so many times. But if I track my success on how many deals am I underwriting, or how many phone calls am I making, or how many conferences am I going to, then I was winning all day long. Yeah. That whole year, right? I made $0, but I was winning every week because I was underwriting X amount of deals or meeting X amount of people.
It's all perspective, right?
It's all perspective. And I like knowing, just having faith, I think really that if I keep doing these things, something will happen. Yeah. And I think the longer I wait, the bigger that something is at the end. Like I like to think, right?
Well, 100%. And then what ends up happening naturally, right, is you learn to fall in love with the process.
Yeah, right.
Which is
That's
really what life's about, right? Like I think so many people get caught up with like the end result, but like life's really about the process. Life's really about the journey. Yeah. And the journey is underwriting all these deals. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's not the deal's getting bought, right? It's the process of it. And when you learn to fall in love with that, you win every day, right? If we learn to fall in love with the process on a daily basis, which is what I truly think that you did, right? Then you feel successful on a daily basis. Yeah. And then what ends up happening long term, right? Long term, you'll win. Yeah. I don't know what that win will look like. Yeah. Right? And sometimes you don't know what that win's going to look like. Yeah. But the reality is you'll figure out what that win's going to look like down the line, right?
Yeah. I mean, and to go back to what you were saying about, like, a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on the end goal. I think that, I see it a lot of the time too, like, being in college and being around college students, a lot of times, like, I think we're naturally, we want to, like, we're always placing our happiness on something in the future. Yeah. And like a lot of times, like in college, a lot of times it's like, man, I can't wait to graduate. Like I can't wait till I'm making $100,000 a year, right? And then guess what? Like that happens, and then you're expecting it to bring you all kinds of joy, but like actually you just feel empty. Correct. Because we're wired to. This is where I was going. Is like biologically, like we're wired to attain, like to move towards a goal. And so what happens is when we make our whole life about attaining a single goal and we achieve it, that whole reward system just gets wiped away. Correct. And then we're just like, okay, well, now, right? And so I think like what you said, like life is the journey. Like happiness and satisfaction and fulfillment is found in the journey uphill. Correct. It's not found at the summit. Because then you're like, okay, well now what? Like, because we're all wired to really be moving towards something. So I think
and when you think about it that way, what you learn to do is be grateful for the little things on a daily basis. Yeah. And when you start really focusing in on the little things every day, that's what makes big changes, right? Like you said, as you go up this hill, right, it's the adventure going up the hill. Once you get to the top of the hill, you look and, oh my gosh, it's beautiful. Yeah. And then what do? Yeah. You go right back down the hill. Right. And then you say how great that hike was. Yeah. Oh my gosh, do you remember, look how, you say it was so beautiful up there, but oh my gosh, do you remember when you almost fell down the side? Yeah. Hell yeah, blah, blah, blah. Those are the stories you tell, right? Like, and that is truly what life's about. It's about that thought process and chasing and finding something that you're going to I think changing your perspective on success. Yeah. Right? I talk about this all the time. Like perspective on success for me, like is positively impacting one person on a daily basis. Yeah. If I can do that, then I win. Yeah. Right? And because I went through exactly what you're saying. Yeah. I went through, I bought my mom's house, I got my G-Wagon, I got my, I did everything I wanted. Right. And then I'm like, okay, now what? Yeah. Right? And that will happen forever. Yeah. Forever. Whether you're right now, when you're graduating college, or, 10 years from now, whatever, what's the next thing? You're always going to be chasing that next thing. And what happens when there's not a next thing? Yeah. Or what happens to a lot of people is they have these, quarter life crisis, midlife crisis, blah, 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 because they can't see the next thing. And it's exactly what you just said, is because we're wired to chase the next thing.
Yeah.
And so when we can't see the next thing, that's what actually leads us to these identity crises.
Yeah.
Right? Where if you focus on daily action as your success and you switch your perspective to that's my success on a daily basis, you never lose.
Yeah.
And you always have purpose.
And there's something else here too, which is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy, but they wrote a book called The Gap in the Gain, which is basically, it's this idea of measuring your success on the gain instead of the gap. And what that means is the gain is looking at where you started to where you are now.
Yep.
And how far you've come. The gap, which is where a lot of us spend a lot of time, unfortunately, which is the difference between where we are and where we think we're supposed to be, or where we want to be. And so kind of always living in the gap, which is what a lot of highly successful people do, is they're constantly in the gap, right? They're constantly measuring themselves against some arbitrary thing that they haven't achieved yet. Because again, that's what we're wired to do, right? So when they hit 7 figures a year, or when they hit an 8-figure net worth or a 9-figure net worth, then they're looking for the next one.
Yep.
Because there's somebody else out there that has something more than they do. And instead of living in the gain, which is, man, look at where I was, and look how far I've come, and just taking the time to enjoy that, like even just for a moment, right? Because I think you have to have a little bit of both, honestly, right? If you're going to continue driving forward, like you've got to have something to aim towards. And one of my favorite people listening to is Ed Milet. Ed Milet says he says it like being blissfully dissatisfied, right? Which is just being blissful, right, in the moment, and just enjoying yourself, but also being at the same time dissatisfied, right, and wanting more and going out there and getting it.
Yeah. So you're now you fell in love with the process. You got into multifamily commercial. You're crushing it right now. What's next? What's your next goal?
Yeah, man. What is next? Honestly, it's I sat down, and this time last year I wrote what's called a vivid vision, which is basically just wrote down like what exactly my life looks like, and I think I did it for 5 years from now. But I'd like for Horizon 10 Properties to have, and I think looking back on this, it needs to be revised, but $100 million in assets under management. And so that in order for me to buy $100 million worth of real estate, first of all I've got to have a fantastic team around me.
Yep.
Right. But aside from that, I have to have raised, $20 to $30 million of equity, if not more.
Yep.
And so that comes from investors, right? So I think that's really what's driving it. Again, back to this point of bringing along those investors, on the journey and playing a role in their path to financial independence, and to, that idea of helping them provide for their family passively, and maybe helping them exit their 9-to-5 job and give them more flexibility. So that's the vision.
Hell yeah, bro. Now, I appreciate you. I have 2 more questions for you. One question is there's someone out there that's 18, 19 years old. They want to get into real estate, but they don't think it's possible. What piece of advice would you give them? Man,
you're not in the right rooms. Like so get out there and get in the right rooms. And what that looks like is, there's, no matter what city you live in, there's meetups, right? So there's real estate meetups where monthly or quarterly or, maybe twice a year it is, where they go and they just a bunch of real estate investors get in the same room and they just talk. They network and they meet each other. And so, if you don't think it's possible to, just go to some of those and tell people who you are and what you're looking to get into, and just listen to other people's stories, and you'll start to hear, some similar stories of people that see yourself in them, or they see you in themselves, and a lot of times they'll want to help. So that's probably what I would do is, get yourself in the right room. Always try to be the dumbest person in the room, right? If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. When you're in the right rooms, you're surrounded by people that have done so much more than you have, and they naturally just bring you up.
Yeah.
And they give you opportunities, right? You've got to be willing to kind of work for them, and provide value to them. But that's what I would say for sure.
I love that. So, listen more than you speak, and find a great mentor.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, love that. And then my last question for you is, where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, so let's see, I'm on LinkedIn, Jaden George, and Instagram, Buying Life Back. And
Can you spell both of those?
yeah, so Jaden, and then last name George, which is spelled like the first name, and that's LinkedIn, and then Buying Life Back, BuyingLifeBack, and that's on Instagram.
Hell yeah,
Find me
bro.
there.
Appreciate you for being on. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. I really appreciate this conversation.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you for having me.
All right, cool.